All right. Good evening. Happy Friday evening, everybody. It's Comics Workshop, merrickbennett.com. Join the Patreon for more. I'm Merrick Bennett, and we're going to do some live drawing here, live inking tonight. On Fridays, I like to do a little relaxing live inking session. So I got a couple panels here that I was working on today, and I saved them to ink with you this evening because I thought they'd be kind of fun just to do two simple panels in a new episode here. So this is from the Life and Times of Hercules, retelling the ancient myths, combining a couple sources. And this is a page from the second labor where Hercules has been charged to go find the Hydra in the swamps of Lerna. Find it, extirpate it, and come back and report to the king, who's sending him out to go after every scary monster in the area. So let's see. I'm just here. I've been doing all my panel borders with a thick line. And I'll come in with my thin line flare pen. And this has been a fun project because I have a limit of a couple pages per labor. So I have to really jump right into the story right away. Can't waste pages and panels kind of building mood and stuff. It's real getting me back to my newspaper comic strip chops. We got room for a "the" there. That lets me space out the swamp of Lerna a little more. I just kind of roughly plan things out when I pencil. And then when I ink, it's carving it in stone, sort of. Kill the Hydra in the swamp of Lerna, huh? Okay. So the previous episode ends with Hercules saying, "What's my next task? What's my next labor?" And rather than show the answer, I'm just going to show him arriving in the swamp here. He always thinks, okay, simple enough, I can do it. And he will be disabused of that relaxed attitude right away when he encounters the Hydra. Let's see. So there's a little bit of Cyclopean architecture back here. Tiryns, the fortress city, the King Eurystheus, who's sending Hercules off on all these quests. Hercules, of course, is trying to absolve himself, trying to make up for his poor behavior at home. After he returns from war, he just doesn't fit in at home, treats his family very badly, goes off on this quest to redeem himself. So he leaves the castle back there, and then we'll put some grass and bushes. He walks many, many miles to get here, but we're jumping him from the previous panel, boom, right into this. He's arriving in the swamp. So my Hercules here, all my Hercules I kind of do as like my Freeman Colby stick figure, circle head, kind of a triangle body, and then just sticks for arms and legs. And in this case, I'm sort of fleshing them out, drawing lines on either side of those sticks to make them like bubble cartoon hands, because I think Hercules needs to look a little more muscular than those skinny stick arms allow. And as he goes through his adventures, he kind of builds up this stock of things that he wears and carries with him. So he started off with just this toga thing, this Greek robe shirt he wears, sandals. I can't decide, 3 toes or 4. I mean, his hands have 3 fingers and a thumb, so it seems like his feet should have 4 toes, but that looks like a lot of toes. Hopefully readers won't be counting the toes on the feet, though. If they are, they're not caught up in the story. I'm not doing my job. So here he is walking along. And he's wearing, of course, this nice lion skin robe. Sources differ. Some sources say this was the Catharian lion, the first beast he ever encounters at age 18 when he leaves the cattle farm. See previous episode. Other sources insist that this is the lion of Nemea, offspring of the mighty Typhon and Echidna, which seems like that would be an awfully big robe. So I draw it right from the start. He's always wearing this lion robe. A little bit of concern, rosy cheeks of youth, light beard of early adulthood, lack of nose, as my stick figures tend to have. Oh, and he's carrying his sword from Athena instead of his club. It's just a little easier to draw this story with a sword, but some say he used his club against the Hydra. Some say he used his sword. Let's see now. Put a little bit of fur hair on this lion cape he wears. And we're going to need, let's get that marker. And we'll lay down a little shadow under him, just so he kind of pops off the ground and you can see he's striding along. That's like a little visual underscore, right? It says, hey, here's a weighty character. Put some dust and scratches on the ground, and he's getting into, well, I thought I'd put a sign here. The swamp of welcome to Lerna. Beware of Hydra. That's kind of the fine print there. That's not really part of the story, but readers who view this at size in the final book will be able to read that on the page. I don't know if it'll read right on the on a phone screen or something, but we'll do some bushes here, some blobby cartoon bushes, a couple of branches and things. And the swamp, I'm going to let the reader kind of imagine the swamp, you know, not like I said, I'm going to get right into the story and move very quickly through it because I really have, like, in this case, 2 panels, but I have 6 panels total to kind of get the story into the quest. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing swamp scenery. I'm just going to say it's a swamp, show a couple branches, let the reader imagine it. That's just like this, from here to here, from the castle to where Hercules is entering the swamp. I mean, that's a journey of many miles, but I'm just going to show it in one panel. Boom, we're into the story. Okay, simple enough. He's traveling left to right. He reads into this panel, arrives in this panel, and sees what he's facing here. Just like the sources don't really describe the Hydra in the myths, Apollodorus says it had 9 heads and a gigantic body. Other sources said it had 100 heads. Other sources said it had 1 head. You pick your source that you think, well, in this case, that you think tells the best story, I think. Or you combine a couple sources. I'm following Apollodorus in most of my retellings, redrawings of these myths. He says, oh, good grief. It has, I think I'll make that bold there, 9 heads. Good grief is like trying to use, since I'm drawing this comic strip style, I'm trying to reference like old Peanuts comics. It has 9 heads. Not super plussed about that. Of course, Hercules won't give up for just because the monster has 9 heads. But it's not going to be easy. He has to use a little stratagem, and he gets into trouble for that. Let's see. I kind of like how the mane outlines his face in this. There's a lot more details than I meant to have with this lion cape over his head, but it's kind of a nice little design. I like how his face and the leather. Maybe that's why he wore it. Apollodorus says he used the lion's maw as his hood, which must have been something to see. All right, hand up. Cartoon bubble fingers there. I mean, that's not a Renaissance grade anatomical hand, is it? It's just 3 bumps and another bump pointing in another direction. And the other direction's got to go up because it's his right hand. And that's all we're doing here, cartooning, right? Make sure all the details are in the right place. They might not be photographically correct, but what is correct? I'm trying to tell a story here. This lion, I like how the tail and the feet of the lion hang out behind him here. Oh, and this is a nice little surprise as I drew this. He wants to put his hands out and he's going, it has 9 heads, and he can't let go of his sword. So these 2 fingers come out, but these 2 fingers stay clenching the sword. I love it when characters do that sort of stuff as you're drawing them. And you didn't mean to do that, but they're doing it. I had this plan, those armbands, like if he's a little too hard to see on the page, I could always just color all his armbands black, and that would give him like nice black, heavy bits showing where his hands are, wherever they are in the adventure, right? Moving, doing stuff. It would draw your attention to him nicely. I'm going to draw him. You won't see his feet, so I won't have to count toes here. He's sort of sinking into the mud a little bit. Apollodorus says he surprised the Hydra up on a hill near the spring where the Hydra lived. But I kind of want him in the mud down here. So maybe the Hydra is up on a hill up here. It's a small hill. We'll put some grass back here and a crooked Okefenokee swamp. What is that? Pogo swamp there. We'll put a little Walt Kelly style swamp tree in there. Okefenokee. That's it. Little bit of scenery in the background, but mostly I want you looking at these heads because that's what he's looking at. We'll put a little grass in the foreground, a whole lot of mud down here. Starting to sink into it. There would be, you know, in a longer graphic novel, there might be several panels of him exploring the swamp and building the mood and the shadows and the vines and so on. I have to just rely on the word swamp and and the fact that he's sinking a little in the mud, and you get the idea. And we're going to jump right into the stratagem he deploys against this Hydra. All right, so when I started penciling this Hydra, you can see I started doing scales that are like, I have a sample here, scales like this, right? Bumpy scales, but then I switched, and second time I have another sample. I started doing just X cross-hatching scales. So I think I'll stick, I like the X cross-hatching scales better. So I'm going to stick with that on all these heads. That's the one thing that makes them hang together as a single monster and not a bunch of monsters, is they all have the same scale pattern. I remember as a kid reading, I think it was an Edith Hamilton collection of these stories, and somebody had done the illustrations, and the way they illustrated the Hydra, each of the heads had this different personality. One had 1 horn, one had 2 horns, one had 1 eye, one had 2 eyes. And I kind of wanted to do that here. Each one, like this one has a little mohawk and floppy dog ears, but they all look mean. They all look dangerous. You wouldn't want to get too close to them. The Hydra is this dreadful beast. Actually, according to some of the sources, it turns out the goddess Hera raised the Hydra to take revenge on Hercules himself. She hated Hercules because he was the illegitimate offspring of her husband Zeus and a mortal woman. So Hera, of course, throughout Hercules's life is his bane, his antagonist. This one has bunny ears. It might almost look cute, but then you get close and you see its teeth. Actually, the name Hercules, they say he got that name when he was charged with his labors by the oracle at Delphi, by the priestess at Delphi. And she said, heretofore you've been Alcides, And now you will be known as Hercules, glory of Hera. And I like to imagine him saying, you know Hera's trying to kill me, right? Like I feel like it's the priestess of Apollo giving Hera a little tweak. I'm going to name this hero Glory of Hera, even though you can't stand him. Some of these Hydra heads get a little goofy, but I think they're still pretty dangerous. That one's got a wig. All right, we'll give this one a rhino horn. Let's just make sure we have them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so here's the scale pattern. I'm going to go curving from the bottom up, and I'll lighten the pressure as I go up so they sort of fade to the top. And then I'll curve another way, going around this way. So it's not straight lines because these are curved necks, right? So we want to sort of follow the curve of the neck and then follow the curve of the neck going this way. Should make those scales a little smaller so the heads don't look too small. They need to look big. And I'm not going to scale the heads because that would make the faces hard to see. So each head is kind of smooth and then each neck is scaly. Now it's the necks that Hercules is going to go for. He's going to take his sword of the gods here and slice right through a Hydra head and discover the other superpower of the Hydra. Bump, 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 bump. Whoop, don't forget the tongues. And some of the sources say the Hydra could breathe venom or breathe something nasty. So some of these, we'll give some of these some sort of venom spittle. All right. Oh, I like how those scales look. They really add to the texture of this side. So we walk from the castle, we enter Lerna, we walk across, boom, we stop at a wall of Hydra heads, and then we'll go down. And that's all that's 20 minutes. So I'm going to limit myself tonight for the live draw. But next, I'm going to ink what happens next. So he slices through the head and he realizes 2 heads, boing, pop out wherever you behead the Hydra in one place, boom, suddenly it has 2 heads. And he realizes that's no way to win. So he's going to have to use my secret weapon. And I'll show you what that is when I post the pages. So once I've inked this whole page, of course, this is PIE, pencil ink erase. Once I've inked the whole page, I'll go back over it with this nice, clean, new eraser. I'll erase all those pencil lines, right? I'll scan it in. I'll process it. Probably I'll do some spot blacks on the head, on the mouth, the open mouth here, maybe the door, anything I want to draw your eye to. I might add some heavy black shadows or something. In fact, let's add a little more shading under this mud. Like we said, sort of underscoring our character, making sure you see them. And then I'll have the whole page done. And then I'll move on to the next page. Actually, I drew the next page already. It's a battle scene with the Hydras, but oh, you don't want to see that yet. You'll want to read this page first. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Nice to draw with you today. You'll find more over at merrickbennett.com. And if you want to see the final artwork and see the stories as they're coming out before they're available anywhere else, join the Patreon. You can join at any rate. And it really helps do these live draws, helps me make all the comics, and helps me share ahead of time with you. Thank you, patrons, for making this possible. And thanks, everybody, for stopping in. Nice to see you tonight. Have a great weekend.